Welcome everybody, this is Alan with Daily Armour of God. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're all doing well. This is reading the Bible in 123 days. We're on day 51. And today we'll be reading 2nd Chronicles 21 through 29. So, continuing on down the line of kings, we saw so far a couple good ones, at least in Judah. We know that in Israel's kings, they had, I would say, 99 if not 100% bad kings. Now Judah had probably, I don't know if these percentages are correct, but Judah probably had, if I were to give an estimate, it's probably more like 80% bad kings and the rest were good. So very few, but there were good kings, but only in Judah. So 2nd Chronicles 21 verse 1. Now Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, and Jehoram his son reigned in his stead. And he had brethren, the sons of Jehoshaphat, Azariah and Jehiel, and Zechariah and Azariah, and Michael, and Shephatiah. And all these were the sons of Jehoshaphat king of Israel. And their father gave them great gifts of silver and of gold and precious things with fenced cities in Judah. But the kingdom gave he to Jehoram, because he was the firstborn. Now when Jehoram was risen up to the kingdom of his father, he strengthened himself and slew all his brethren with the sword, and divers also of the princes of Israel. Jehoram was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem, and he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel. So if you know the kings of Israel, they were all wicked, so basically it's saying he was wicked. Obviously, I mean, we just read that he killed all his brothers. I mean, how sick is that? They walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, like as did the house of Ahab, for he had the daughter of Ahab to wife, and he wrought that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh. Howbeit, Yahweh would not destroy the house of David because of the covenant that he had made with David, as he promised to give a light to him and to his sons forever. In his days the Edomites revolted from under the dominion of Judah, and made themselves a king. Then Jehoram went forth with his princes and all his chariots with him, and he rose up by the night, and smote the Edomites which compassed him in, and the captains of the chariots. So the Edomites revolted from under the hand of Judah unto this day. The same time also did Libnah revolt from under his hand, because he had forsaken Yahweh God of his fathers. Moreover, he made high places in the mountains of Judah, and caused the inhabitants of Jerusalem to commit fornication, and compelled Judah thereto. And there came a writing to him from Elijah the prophet, saying, Thus saith Yahweh, God of David thy father, because thou hast not walked in the ways of Jehoshaphat thy father, nor in the ways of Asa king of Judah, but hast walked in the way of the kings of Israel, and hast made Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to go whoring, like to the whoredoms of the house of Ahab, and also hast slain thy brethren of thy father's house, which were better than thyself, behold, with a great plague will Yahweh smite thy people, and thy children, and thy wives, and all thy goods. And thou shalt have great sickness by disease of thy bowels, until thy bowels fall out by reason of the sickness day by day. That sounds so bad. Moreover, Yahweh stirred up against Jehoram the spirit of the Philistines and of the Arabians that were near the Ethiopians, and they came up into Judah and brake into it, and carried away all the substance that was found in the king's house, and his sons also, and his wives, so that there was never a son left him, save Jehoaz, the youngest of his sons. And after all this, Yahweh smote him in his bowels with an incurable disease. It came to pass that in the process of time, after the end of 2 years, his bowels fell out by reason of his sickness. So he died of a sore diseases, and his people made no burning for him like the burning of his fathers. Man, that just sounds so disgusting. But he did evil in the sight of God, and he made everyone around him to sin. 32 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years, and departed without being desired. Howbeit they buried him in the city of David, but not in the sepulchres of the kings. Yeah. 2 Chronicles 22. And the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah his youngest son king in his stead, for the band of men that came with the Arabians to the camp had slain all the eldest. So Uzziah the son of Jehoram king of Judah reigned. 42 years old was Uzziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri. He also walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. Wherefore he did evil in the sight of Yahweh, like the house of Ahab, for they were his counselors after the death of his father to his destruction. He walked also after their counsel, and went with Jehoram the son of Ahab king of Israel to war against Hazael king of Syria at Ramoth Gilead. And the Syrians smote Joram. He returned to be healed in Jezreel because of the wounds which were given him at Ramah when he fought with Hazael king of Syria. And Azariah the son of Jehoram king of Judah went down to see Jehoram the son of Ahab at Jezreel, because he was sick. And the destruction of Azariah was of God by the coming to Joram. For when he was come, he went out with Jehoram against Jehu the son of Nimshi, whom Yahweh had anointed to cut off the house of Ahab. And it came to pass that, when Jehu was executing judgment upon the house of Ahab, and found the princes of Judah and the sons of the brethren of Uzziah that ministered to Uzziah, he slew them. And he sought Uzziah, and they caught him, for he was hid in Samaria, and brought him to Jehu. And when they had slain him, they buried him, because they said, He is the son of Jehoshaphat, who sought Yahweh with all his heart. So the house of Uzziah had no power to keep still the kingdom. But when Athaliah, the mother of Uzziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal of the house of Judah. But Jehoshabeath, the daughter of the king, took Joash, the son of Uzziah, and stole him from among the king's sons that were slain, and put him in his nurse in a bedchamber. So Jehoshabeath, the daughter of King Jehoram, the wife of Jehoiada the priest, for she was the sister of Uzziah, hid him from Athaliah, so that she slew him not. And he was with them, hid in the house of God 6 years, and Athaliah reigned over the land. 2 Chronicles 23. And in the 7th year Jehoiada strengthened himself and took the captains of hundreds, Azariah the son of Jehoram, and Ishmael the son of Jehohanan, and Azariah the son of Obed, and Messiah the son of Adiah, and Elisaphat the son of Zichri, into a covenant with him. And they went about in Judah, and gathered the Levites out of all the cities of Judah, and the chief of the fathers of Israel. And they came to Jerusalem. And all the congregation made a covenant with the king in the house of God. And he said unto them, Behold, the king's son shall reign, as Yahweh hath said of the sons of David. This is the thing that ye shall do. A third part of you entering on the Sabbath of the priests and of the Levites shall be porters of the doors. A third part shall be at the king's house, and a third part at the gate of the foundation, and all the people shall be in the courts of the house of Yahweh. But let none come into the house of Yahweh, save the priests, and they that minister of the Levites. They shall go in, for they are holy. But all the people shall keep the watch of Yahweh. And the Levites shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapons in his hand, and whosoever else cometh into the house, he shall be put to death. But be ye with the king when he cometh in, and when he goeth out. So the Levites and all Judah did according to all things that Jehoiada the priest had commanded, and took every man his men that were come in on the Sabbath, with them that were to go out on the Sabbath. For Jehoiada the priest dismissed not the courses. Moreover, Jehoiada the priest delivered to the captains of hundreds spears and bucklers and shields that had been King David's, which were in the house of God. And he set all the people, every man having his weapon in his hand, from the right side of the temple to the left side of the temple, along by the altar, and the temple by the king round about. And they brought out the king's son, and put upon him the crown, and gave him the testimony, and made him king. And Jehoiada and his sons anointed him, and said, God save the king. And when Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and praising the king, she came to the people in the house of Yahweh. And she looked, and behold, the king stood at his pillar at the entering in, and the princes and the trumpets by the king, and all the people of the land rejoiced and sounded with trumpets, also the singers with instruments of music, and such as taught to sing praise. Then Athaliah rent her clothes and said, Treason, treason! Then Jehoiada the priest brought out the captains of hundreds that were set over the host, and said to them, Have her forth of the ranges, and whoso followeth her, let him be slain with the sword. For the priest said, Slay her not in the house of Yahweh. So they laid hands on her, and when she was come to the entering of the horse gate by the king's house, they slew her there. Jehoiada made a covenant between him and between all the people and between the king, that they should be Yahweh's people. Then all the people went to the house of Baal, and brake it down, and brake his altars and his images in pieces, and slew Matan the priest of Baal before the altars. Also Jehoiada appointed the offices of the house of Yahweh by the hand of the priests the Levites, whom David had distributed in the house of Yahweh, to offer the burnt offerings of Yahweh, as it is written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and with singing, as it was ordained by David. And he set the porters at the gates of the house of Yahweh, that none which was unclean in anything should enter in. And he took the captains of hundreds, and the nobles, and the governors of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought down the king from the house of Yahweh. And they came through the high gate into the king's house, and set the king upon the throne of the kingdom. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet, after that they had slain Athaliah with the sword. 2 Chronicles 24. Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. Isn't that interesting? He reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. Who else reigned 40 years total? Well, Solomon reigned 40 years in Jerusalem, and King David reigned a total of 40 years, 33 being in Jerusalem. So that is just interesting. That number keeps popping up. So, Joash reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Zebiah of Beersheba. And Joash did that which was right in the sight of Yahweh all the days of Jehoiada the priest. And Jehoiada took from him 2 wives, and he begat sons and daughters. And it came to pass after this that Joash was minded to repair the house of Yahweh. And he gathered together the priests and Levites, and said to them, Go out unto the cities of Judah, and gather of all Israel money to repair the house of your God from year to year, and see that ye hasten the matter, howbeit the Levites hastened it not. And the king called for Jehoiada the chief, and said unto him, Why hast thou not required of the Levites to bring in out of Judah and out of Jerusalem the collection according to the commandment of Moses the servant of Yahweh, and of the congregation of Israel for the tabernacle of witness? The sons of Athaliah, that wicked woman, had broken up the house of God, and also all the dedicated things of the house of Yahweh did they bestow upon Baalim. In the king's commandment they made a chest, and set it without the gate of the house of Yahweh, and they made a proclamation through Judah and Jerusalem, to bring in to Yahweh the collection that Moses the servant of God laid upon Israel in the wilderness. And all the princes and all the people rejoiced, and brought in and cast into the chest until they had made an end. Now it came to pass that at what time the chest was brought into the king's office by the hand of the Levites, and when they saw that there was much money, the king's scribes and the high priest's officer came and emptied the chest, and took it, and they carried it to his place again. Thus they did day by day, and gathered money in abundance. And the king and Jehoiada gave it to such as did the work of the service of the house of Yahweh, and hired masons and carpenters to repair the house of Yahweh, and also such as wrought iron and brass to mend the house of Yahweh. So the workmen wrought, and the work was perfected by them, and they set the house of God in his state, and strengthened it. When they had finished it, they brought the rest of the money before the king and Jehoiada, whereof they made vessels for the house of Yahweh, even vessels to minister and to offer withal, and spoons and vessels of gold and silver. And they offered burnt offerings in the house of Yahweh continually all the days of Jehoiada. But Jehoiada waxed old, and was full of days when he died. 130 years old was he when he died. And they buried him in the city of David among the kings, because he had done good in Israel, both toward God and toward his house. After the death of Jehoiada came the princes of Judah, and made obeisance to the king. Then the king hearkened unto them. And they left the house of Yahweh God of their fathers, and they served groves and idols. And wrath came upon Judah and Jerusalem for this their trespass. Yet he sent prophets to them to bring them again unto Yahweh, and they testified against them, but they would not give ear. And the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah the son of Jehoiada the priest, which stood above the people, and said unto them, Thus saith God, Why transgress ye the commandments of Yahweh, that ye cannot prosper? Because ye have forsaken Yahweh, he hath also forsaken you. And they conspired against him and stoned him with stones at the commandment of the king in the court of the house of... Wow. House of Yahweh. So, I'm just now getting this. I missed this part last time I read through this. So, Joash, this good king, supposedly, right? He did good, and obviously here he did bad. So he kills the son of Jehoiada, the one who served him and served his house faithfully and served God. They killed him because he was saying what the Lord told him. That's all. So he killed him. Thus Joash the king remembered not the kindness which Jehoiada his father had done to him, but slew his son. And when he died, he said, Yahweh look upon it and require it. And it came to pass at the end of the year that the host of Syria came up against him, and they came to Judah and Jerusalem, and destroyed all the princes of the people from among the people, and sent all the spoil of them unto the king of Damascus. For the army of the Syrians came with a small company of men, and Yahweh delivered a very great host into their hand, because they had forsaken Yahweh, God of their fathers. So they executed judgment against Joash. When they were departed from him, for they left him in great diseases, his own servants conspired against him for the blood of the sons of Jehoiada the priest, and slew him on his bed, and he died. And they buried him in the city of David, but they buried him not in the sepulchres of the kings. So this just goes to show you, like, he started out good, Joash, but man, he ended very badly. So this is another thing I was going to say, like, yeah, there's good kings in Judah, and there's mainly bad kings, but also you have to figure some of these good kings, they start off good, but they ended badly. I mean, that's just pretty much out of the good kings. Probably half of the good kings ended badly. So, despite them being good, they ultimately were bad towards the end. And we saw that too with Solomon. He was good basically his whole life, but he was influenced by all his wives to worship other gods. And what happened when he, in his old age, he worshipped other gods, and like Josh here, forsook the one true living God, Yahweh. That's sad to see that. It really is sad to see how you can start off strong, but you can also fall away. So, 2 Chronicles 24:26. And these are they that conspired against him, Zabad the son of Shimeath, an Ammonitess, and Jehozabad the son of Shimrith, a Moabitess. Now concerning his sons and the greatness of the burdens laid upon him and the repairing of the house of God, behold, they are written in the story of the book of the kings, and Amaziah his son reigned in his stead. 2 Chronicles 25. Amaziah was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jehoaddan of Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of Yahweh, but not with a perfect heart. Now it came to pass, when the kingdom was established to him, that he slew his servants that had killed the king his father. But he slew not their children, but did as it was written in the law of the book of Moses, where Yahweh commanded, saying, The fathers shall not die for the children, neither shall the children die for the fathers, but every man die for his own sin. Moreover, Amaziah gathered Judah together, and made them captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, according to the houses of their fathers, throughout all Judah and Benjamin. And he numbered them from 20 years old and above, and found them 300,000 choice men, able to go forth to war, that could handle spear and shield. He hired also 100,000 mighty men of valor out of Israel, for 100 talents of silver. But there came a man of God to him, saying, O king, let not the army of Israel go with thee, for Yahweh is not with Israel, to wit, with all the children of Ephraim. But if thou wilt go, do it. Be strong for the battle. God shall make thee fall before the enemy, for God hath power to help and to cast down. And Amaziah said to the man of God, But what shall we do for the 100 talents which I have given to the army of Israel? And the man of God answered, Yahweh is able to give thee much more than this. Then Amaziah separated them, to wit, the army that was come to him out of Ephraim, to go home again. Wherefore their anger was greatly kindled against Judah, and they returned home in great anger. And Amaziah strengthened himself, and led forth his people, and went to the valley of Salt, and smote the children of Seir 10,000. And other 10,000 left alive did the children of Judah carry away captive, and brought them unto the top of the rock, and cast them down from the top of the rock, that they were all broken in pieces. But the soldiers of the army which Amaziah sent back, that they should not go with him to battle, fell upon the cities of Judah, from Samaria even to Beth-horon, and smote 3,000 of them, and took much spoil. Now it came to pass, after that Amaziah was come from the slaughter of the Edomites, that he brought the gods of the children of Seir, and set them up to be his gods, and bowed down himself before them, and burned incense unto them. Wherefore the anger of Yahweh is kindled against Amaziah, and he sent unto him a prophet, which said unto him, Why hast thou sought after the gods of the people, which could not deliver their own people out of thine hand? It came to pass, as he talked with him, that the king said unto him, Art thou made of the king's counsel? Forbear, why shouldest thou be smitten? Then the prophet forbare and said, I know that God hath determined to destroy thee, because thou hast done this, and hast not hearkened unto my counsel. Then Amaziah king of Judah took advice, and sent to Joash the son of Jehoaz, the son of Jehu king of Israel, saying, Come, let us see one another in the face. And Joash king of Israel sent to Amaziah king of Judah, saying, The thistle that was in Lebanon sent to the cedar that was in Lebanon, saying, Give thy daughter to my son to wife. And there passed by a wild beast that was in Lebanon, and trode down the thistle. Thou sayest, Lo, thou hast smitten the Edomites, and thine heart lifteth thee up to boast. Abide now at home. Why shouldest thou meddle to thine hurt, that thou shouldest fall, even thou and Judah with thee? But Amaziah would not hear, for it came of God, that he might deliver them into the hand of their enemies, because they sought after the gods of Edom. So Joash the king of Israel went up, and they saw one another in the face, both he and Amaziah king of Judah, at Bethshemesh, which belongeth to Judah. And Judah was put to the worst before Israel, and they fled every man to his tent. And Joash the king of Israel took Amaziah king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Jehoaz, at Bethshemesh, and brought him to Jerusalem, and brake down the wall of Jerusalem, from the gate of Ephraim to the corner gate, 400 cubits. And he took all the gold and the silver, and all the vessels that were found in the house of God with Obed-edom, and the treasures of the king's house, the hostages also, and he returned to Samaria. And Amaziah the son of Joash, king of Judah, lived after the death of Joash, son of Jehoaz, king of Israel, 15 years. Now the rest of the acts of Amaziah, first and last, behold, are they not written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel? Now after the time that Amaziah did turn away from following Yahweh, they made a conspiracy against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish, but they sent to Lachish after him, and slew him there, and brought him upon horses, and buried him with his fathers in the city of Judah. Ooh, man, you see what forsaking God and following him with a half heart gets you? I mean, it's just nothing but troubles. And there's, lots of lessons we can learn from this, because when we forsake God from following him, from doing what's right, then we're going to have nothing but troubles too. So lots of learning here in these chapters. 2 Chronicles 26. Then all the people of Judah took Uzziah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in the room of his father Amaziah. He built Elath and restored it to Judah. After that the king slept with his fathers. 16 years old was Uzziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name also was Jecholiah of Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of Yahweh, according to all that his father Amaziah did. And he sought God in the days of Zechariah, who had an understanding in the visions of God, and as long as he sought Yahweh, God made him to prosper. And he went forth and warred against the Philistines, and brake down the wall of Gath, and the wall of Jabneh, and the wall of Ashdod, and built cities about Ashdod and among the Philistines. And God helped him against the Philistines, and against the Arabians that dwelt in Gabal, and the Mehunims. And the Ammonites gave gifts to Uzziah, and his name spread abroad even to the entering of Egypt. For he strengthened himself exceedingly. Moreover, Uzziah built towers in Jerusalem at the corner gate, and at the valley gate, and at the turning of the wall, and fortified them. Also he built towers in the desert, and digged many wells, for he had much cattle, both in the low country and in the plains, husbandmen also, and vine dressers in the mountains, and in Carmel, for he loved husbandry. Moreover, Uzziah had a host of fighting men that went out to war by bands, according to the number of their account, by the hand of Jehiel the scribe, and Messiah the ruler, under the hand of Hananiah, one of the king's captains. The whole number of the chief of the fathers of the mighty men of valor were 2,600. And under their hand was an army 300,000 and 7,500 that made war with mighty power to help the king against the enemy. And Uzziah prepared for them throughout all the host shields and spears and helmets and habergeons and bows and slings to cast stones. And he made in Jerusalem engines invented by cunning men to be in the towers upon the bulwarks, to shoot arrows and great stones withal. And his name spread far abroad, for he was marvelously helped till he was strong. But when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction, for he transgressed against Yahweh his God, and went into the temple of Yahweh to burn incense upon the altar of incense. Isn't this interesting here, this part? It says, when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction. So his pride got to him. He was blessed by God, but he didn't keep himself humble. He got prideful and lifted himself up. And that is that's vital. You know, so many times in the Bible it says that we need to keep ourselves humble, because it's ultimately God. It's God's doing, not us. God is helping us, not ourselves. So we shouldn't lift ourselves up. We should be lifting God up. So more lessons that we can learn from the Old Testament. So 2 Chronicles 26:17. And Azariah the priest went in after him, and with him 80 priests. Again, I said this last video, 80. Whenever you see a score, it's actually score. Whenever you see this score, it's 20. So 80. So it's 80 priests. So it's a lot. 80 priests of Yahweh that were valiant men, and they withstood Uzziah the king, and they said unto him, It appertaineth not unto thee, Uzziah, to burn incense unto Yahweh, but to the priests, the sons of Aaron, that are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for thou hast trespassed, neither shall it be for thine honor from Yahweh God. Then Uzziah was wroth, and he had a censer in his hand to burn incense, and while he was wroth with the priests, the leprosy even rose up in his forehead before the priests in the house of Yahweh from beside the incense altar. And Azariah the chief priest and all the priests looked upon him, and behold, he was leprous in his forehead, and they thrust him out from thence. Yea, himself hasted also to go out, because Yahweh had smitten him. And Uzziah the king was a leper unto the day of his death, dwelt in several houses, being a leper, for he was cut off from the house of Yahweh, and Jotham his son was over the king's house, judging the people of the land. Man, what did I just say, last chapter? We see good kings, and Uzziah was a good king, but toward the end of his life, what happens? He falls away from God and is prideful, and he's struck with leprosy. So sad to see. So sad. Now the rest of the acts of Uzziah, first and last, did Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, write. So Uzziah slept with his fathers, and buried him with his fathers in the field of the burial which belonged to the kings, for they said, He is a leper, and Jotham his son reigned in his stead. This goes... There's so many lessons in these chapters. One of them being, we can't be prideful, number one. We also shouldn't fall away from God, because that just will get you into heaps of trouble. So, tons of lessons here. We need to humble ourselves. We need to follow God with all our heart. Like a lot of these kings that did good, started off good, they weren't fully in it with their whole heart. But we need to be in it with all our heart and serve God. 2 Chronicles 27. Just like the Bible says, God will spew us forth who are lukewarm. He doesn't like us being lukewarm, meaning we're half in it. Half a heart's not, half a heart is. He will spew us forth because he doesn't like lukewarm Christians. 2 Chronicles 27. Jotham was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Jerushah, the daughter of Zadok, and he did that which was right in the sight of Yahweh, according to all that his father Uzziah did. Howbeit, he entered not into the temple of Yahweh, and the people did yet corruptly. He built the high gate of the house of Yahweh, and on the wall of Ophel he built much. Moreover, he built cities in the mountains of Judah, and in the forest he built castles and towers. He fought also with the king of the Ammonites, and prevailed against them, and the children of Ammon gave him the same year 100 talents of silver, and 10,000 measures of wheat, 10,000 of barley. So much did the children of Ammon pay unto him, both the second year and the third. So Jotham became mighty, because he prepared his ways before Yahweh his God. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham, and all his wars and his ways, lo, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And Jotham slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David, and Ahaz his son reigned in his stead. 2 Chronicles 28. Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. But he did not that which was right in the sight of Yahweh, like David his father, for he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, and made also molten images for Baalim. Moreover, he burnt incense in the valley of the son of Hemon, and burnt his children in the fire, after the abominations of the heathen, whom Yahweh had cast out before the children of Israel. He sacrificed also and burnt incense in the high places, and on hills, and under every green tree. Wherefore Yahweh his God delivered him into the hand of the king of Syria, and they smote him, and carried away a great multitude of them captives, and brought them to Damascus. And he also was delivered into the hand of the king of Israel, who smote him with a great slaughter. For Pekah the son of Remaliah slew in Judah 120,000 in one day, which were all valiant men, because they had forsaken Yahweh God of their fathers. And Zikri, a mighty man of Ephraim, slew Messiah the king's son, and Azrikam, the governor of the house, and Elkanah, that was next to the king. And the children of Israel carried away captive of the brethren 200,000, women, sons, and daughters, and took away also away much spoil from them, and brought the spoil to Samaria. But a prophet of Yahweh was there, whose name was Oded, and he went out before the host, and came to Samaria, and said unto them, Behold, because Yahweh God of your fathers was wroth with Judah, he hath delivered them into your hand, and ye have slain them in a range that reacheth up to heaven. And now ye purpose to keep unto the children of Judah and Jerusalem for bondmen and bondwomen unto you. But are there not with you, even with you, sins against Yahweh your God? Now hear me therefore, and deliver the captives again, which ye have taken captive of your brethren, for the fierce wrath of Yahweh is upon you. Then certain of the heads of the children of Ephraim, Azariah the son of Johanan, Bechariah the son of Meshillemoth, and Hezekiah the son of Shallum, and Amasa the son of Hadlai, stood up against them that came from war, and said unto them, Ye shall not bring in the captives hither, for whereas we have offended against Yahweh already, ye intend to add more to our sins and to our trespass? For our trespass is great, and there is fierce wrath against Israel. So the armed men left the captives and the spoil before the princes and all the congregation. The men which were expressed by name rose up and took the captives, and with them spoil clothed all that were naked among them, and arrayed them, and shod them, and gave them to eat and drink, and anointed them, and carried all the feeble of them upon asses, and brought them to Jericho, the city of palm trees, and their brethren. Then they returned to Samaria. At that time did King Ahaz send unto the kings of Assyria to help him. For again the Edomites had come and smitten Judah, and carried away captives. The Philistines also had invaded the cities of the low country and of the south of Judah, and had taken Bethshemesh and Ajalon, and Gederoth and Shoko with the villages thereof, and Timnah with the villages thereof, Gizmo also and the villages thereof, and they dwelt there. For Yahweh brought Judah low because of Ahaz king of Israel, for he made Judah naked and transgressed sore against Yahweh. And Tiglath-Pilsener, king of Assyria, came unto him and distressed him, but strengthened him not. For Ahaz took away a portion out of the house of Yahweh, and out of the house of the king, and of the princes, and gave it unto the king of Assyria, but he helped him not. And in the time of his distress he did trespass yet more against Yahweh. This is that king Ahaz. For he sacrificed unto the gods of Damascus, which smote him. And he said, Because the gods of the kings of Syria help them, therefore I will sacrifice to them, that they may help me. But they were the ruin of him and of all Israel. And Ahaz gathered together the vessels of the house of God, and cut in pieces the vessels of the house of God, and shut up the doors of the house of Yahweh. And he made him altars in every corner of Jerusalem. And in every several city of Judah he made high places to burn incense unto other gods, and provoked to anger Yahweh, God of his fathers. Now the rest of his acts and all his ways, first and last, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. And Ahaz slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city, even in Jerusalem, but they brought him not unto the sepulchres of the kings of Israel, and Hezekiah his son reigned in his stead. 2 Chronicles 29. Hezekiah began to reign when he was 25 years old, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Abijah, the daughter of Zechariah. And he did that which was right in the sight of Yahweh, according to all that David his father had done. He, in the first year of his reign, in the first month, opened the doors of the house of Yahweh, and repaired them. And he brought in the priests and the Levites, and gathered them together into the east street. And he said to them, Hear me, ye Levites, sanctify now yourselves, and sanctify the house of Yahweh, God of your fathers, and carry forth the filthiness out of the holy place. For our fathers have trespassed and done that which was evil in the eyes of Yahweh our God, and have forsaken him, and have turned away their faces from the habitation of Yahweh, and turned their backs. Also they have shut up the doors of the porch, and put out the lamps, and have not burned incense, nor offered burnt offerings in the holy place unto the God of Israel. Wherefore the wrath of Yahweh was upon Judah and Jerusalem, and he hath delivered them to trouble, to astonishment, and to hissing, as ye see with your eyes. For, lo, our fathers have fallen by the sword, and our sons and our daughters and our wives are in captivity for this. Now it is in mine heart to make a covenant with Yahweh God of Israel, that his fierce wrath may turn away from us. My sons, be not now negligent. For Yahweh hath chosen you to stand before him, to serve him, and that ye should minister unto him, and burn incense. Then the Levites arose, Mahath the son of Amasai, and Joel the son of Azariah, the sons of the Kohathites, and of the sons of Merari, Kish the son of Abdi, and Azariah the son of Jehaleel, and of the Gershonites, Joah the son of Zimmah, and Eden the son of Joah, and of the sons of Elizaphan, Shimri and Jehiel, and of the sons of Asaph, Zechariah and Mattaniah, and of the sons of Hemam, Jehiel and Shemi, and the sons of Jeduthun, Shemaiah and Uzziel. They gathered their brethren, and sanctified themselves, and came according to the commandment of the king, by the words of Yahweh, to cleanse the house of Yahweh. And the priests went into the inner part of the house of Yahweh to cleanse it, and brought forth out all the uncleanness that they found in the temple of Yahweh, into the court of the house of Yahweh. And the Levites took it to carry it out abroad into the brook Kidron. Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify it. On the 8th day of the month came they to the porch of Yahweh. So they sanctified the house of Yahweh in the 8 days. And in the 16th day of the first month they made an end. And when they went in to Hezekiah the king, and said, We have cleansed all the house of Yahweh, and the altar of burnt offering with all the vessels thereof, and the showbread table with all the vessels thereof. Moreover, all the vessels which King Ahaz in his reign did cast away in his transgression have we prepared and sanctified, and behold, they are before the altar of Yahweh. Then Hezekiah the king rose early, and gathered the rulers of the city, and went up to the house of Yahweh. And they brought 7 bullocks, and 7 rams, and 7 lambs, and 7 he-goats, for a sin offering for the kingdom, and for the sanctuary, and for Judah. And he commanded the priests, the sons of Aaron, to offer them on the altar of Yahweh. So they killed the bullocks, and the priests received the blood and sprinkled it on the altar. Likewise, when they had killed the rams, they sprinkled the blood upon the altar. They killed also the lambs, and they sprinkled the blood upon the altar. And they brought forth the he-goats for a sin offering before the king and the congregation. They laid their hands upon them, and the priests killed them and they made reconciliation with their blood upon the altar, to make an atonement for all Israel. The king commanded that the burnt offering and the sin offering should be made for all Israel. I just want to point out, this part is very interesting. If you know the New Testament really well, you'll know that this also is in the New Testament, so to speak. So, Jesus Christ, when he died, he made a way for us to be reconciled back to God, to come back to God. And it's only by his blood that we can come back to him. And it was his blood to make an atonement for all Israel. Well, for everyone, not just Israel, but for all. And it's interesting to see this here, because back then, in the Old Testament, this is what you had to do with animals. But animals were not the perfect sacrifice. They couldn't fully take away all sins. They could only take away past sins. But when Jesus died, he made reconciliation possible for us. And his blood, he died once for all. And his blood is powerful enough to wash away all our sins, past, present, and future. So it's just interesting to see it here, and to see it in the New Testament, that Christ made a way for us to come back to God, and it was his blood that made an atonement for us all. So, amen to that, right? 2 Chronicles 29:25. And he set the Levites in the house of Yahweh with cymbals, with psalteries, and with harps, according to the commandment of David, and of Gad the king's seer, and Nathan the prophet, for so was the commandment of Yahweh by his prophets. The Levites stood with the instruments of David, and the priests with the trumpets, and Hezekiah commanded to offer the burnt offering upon the altar. And when the burnt offering began, the song of Yahweh began also with the trumpets and with the instruments ordained by David king of Israel. And all the congregation worshipped, and the singers sang, and the trumpeters sounded, and all this continued until the burnt offering was finished. When they had made an end of offering, the king and all that were present with him bowed themselves and worshipped. Moreover, Hezekiah the king and the princes commanded the Levites to sing praises unto Yahweh with the words of David and of Asaph the seer. And they sang praises with gladness, and they bowed their heads and worshipped. Then Hezekiah answered and said, Now ye have consecrated yourselves unto Yahweh. Come near and bring sacrifices and thank offerings into the house of Yahweh. And the congregation brought in sacrifices and thank offerings, and as many as were of a free heart burnt offerings. The number of the burnt offerings which the congregation brought was 60 bullocks, 100 rams, 200 lambs. All these were for a burnt offering to Yahweh. And the consecrated things were 600 oxen and 3,000 sheep. But the priests were too few, so they could not flay all the burnt offerings, wherefore their brethren the Levites did help them till the work was ended, and until the other priests had sanctified themselves. For the Levites were more upright in heart to sanctify themselves than the priests. And also the burnt offerings were in abundance with the fat of the peace offerings and the drink offerings for every burnt offering. So the service of the house of Yahweh was set in order. And Hezekiah rejoiced, and all the people, that God had prepared the people, for the thing was done suddenly. Okay, well, that's going to be it for today, guys. Lots of learning from these chapters. Main one being, when we fall away from God, then bad things will happen. Unfortunate things will happen. We need to be in God's plan, in God's way, serving him only, with a full heart, not half-hearted. Otherwise, we see many chapters, many kings, they fall away from God, or they're not serving God fully, or they're just plain evil in the sight of God. And what do we see happen? God sends in the Philistines and the Syrians, all these different people that are surrounding Israel and Judah, to basically punish them, chastise them for what they've done. But we see when there's a good king, and he with all his heart serves God, we see peace. And many times we see that God gave them peace, no wars, and prosperous. So that is something big that we must realize when we serve God, we, with all our heart, we will get good things from Him. And even if bad circumstances happen, then God is still with us. No matter what, God is with us. He'll never leave us nor forsake us. But we need to be serving God with all our heart, not half-hearted. We can't be lukewarm Christians. There are many, many Christians today, probably throughout all history too, but we see it today more than ever, that there are many so-called Christians who call themselves Christians, but are, even worse than, can be even worse than the pagans or people who don't believe in God or serve God. They're not serving God with all their heart. We need to serve God with all our heart, and the best way to start doing that is to be in the Word daily. A lot of people say, "Oh, I don't have time to read every day." Well, yes, you do. God has given you today. What are you going to use the time for? Are you going to use the time wisely to be in the Word and to be praying to God, or are you going to use your time for watching TV or being on social media or posting pictures of cats? I don't know. That's just an example. But point is, we have time. We just have to dedicate that time to God. The time He's given us. He's the one who's given us time, right? So how can we serve Him with that time? Is by dedicating a set time to being in the Word daily. It's definitely possible. I've been doing it, and every time I read the Bible, I feel good. Every single time. And I know that's because I'm dedicating time to the Lord. And you will start to feel good too. And praying. Pouring out your heart to God. The only being in existence that knows your heart and your true feelings, knows your thoughts, knows everything about you. No one else knows so much about you than God. So why not pour your heart out to Him and give all your cares and worries to Him? Anyway, enough with my preaching or my speaking. So thanks guys for joining me, and I hope you have a great evening, morning, wherever you're at. And remember to put God first in everything you do. Have faith in Him and trust in Him. Wait upon Him, and you'll never be sorry. And we'll see you tomorrow, God willingly, with more Bible reading. So thank you and take care.